Deja vu. I feel like I've been in this place before.
Deja vu. I just been in this place before.
So this has been very familiar.
So, the last off the shelf you saw was for Lore Olympus, which was a retelling of the Hades and Persephone myth. This week's Lore Olympus just so happens to be...
You just said this week's Lore Olympus. You totally Freudian slipped there.
This week's off the shelf just so happens to be Punderworld, which is a different artist's retelling of the Persephone and Hades myth, which I was incidentally also covering in class just last week.
You know, it was good the first time, and it was just as good the second time. I don't have much to say on that.
It was good in a different way the second time. The character... Alright. There is a difference between Lore Olympus and Punderworld. Like, I don't want any of you viewers out there, if you watch this, to think that they are one and the same. That's different art, different artists, and while the story is based on the same myth, they're telling it very differently, with the characters acting differently.
Here's the problem. I can see where Lore Olympus diverged, like, at a certain point, but it really diverged at a certain point outside of the setting.
Yeah.
Here, I think we only just hit the point where it would have diverged or stayed on track on, like, Lore Olympus.
Yeah, it's an odd point to end off on, to be honest, for the volume.
Like, this one took a full volume to do around what Lore Olympus did in about half that. Not as a knock there.
Yeah.
I did like the pacing of this one.
Well, also, having seen the physical copy of Lore Olympus and knowing, like, how many chapters, this is actually less chapters than Lore Olympus.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so this is a much shorter first volume, which I'm slightly surprised by. When I ordered it thinking it was going to come and it was going to look like the Lore Olympus book, which I don't have, but I've seen it at Barnes & Noble's, and it's kind of like, you know, on the size of like a webtoon, thick. This is like the size of like a Marvel comic book and not much
I mean, what
thinner.
might be happening here is that your concept of what makes a full book has been heavily skewed by all the epics you've been reading lately.
I feel attacked. I feel very attacked. Anyway, so this telling is by Linda Sajic. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. But she's done a few other webtoons and comics, and I think her husband does them too. They're writing a series in conjunction with one another, which is pretty interesting. I really like Punderworld. I actually like Punderworld more than Lore Olympus, but I've also read further in Punderworld.
Yeah, I think that's my problem here so far. Is I just don't feel like I've read enough to, like, be able to say that I like Lore Olympus or this more in Lore Olympus or something like that. For me, I like Lore Olympus more right now, just because I read farther into it.
Right off the bat, speaking of like some of their differences, one of the big ones is the characterization of Persephone between the two series. So while she's cloistered by her mother in both series, Lore Olympus presents it more as like a naive kind of teenager, and we've got like full-on rebellious, angry young adult up in here. Like, in this book, Persephone wants the fuck out. She wants to do things, and her mom kind of just like, Demeter just kind of like sits there and she's like, I'm not going to talk to you until you calm down. You're being very aggressive. You're attacking me. All I'm doing is trying to help you. You're being very aggressive. I'm going to need you to calm down. But then also, Mom, I need to take a walk for 15 minutes. Do I need to go with you? It's 15 minutes. I need to go with you. It's 15 fucking minutes.
Look, I think I speak for all Fate fans when I say fuck Demeter.
This is something I'm going to learn during the DS.
No, I know what you're about to say. Whether you cut that or not, I don't care. But no, this is a frustration you will only ever get if you actually played the game.
Oh, okay. But yeah, no, just right off the bat, first of all, Demeter's actually a character in this book.
Yeah.
She's not really in Lore Olympus. Hades is kind of the same between the two, like a bumbling kind of moron who has no sense of, like, romantic relationships. Not gonna lie, that's the best way to describe it. He is a bumbling moron across both series. We love him for it, though. It's adorable. Zeus's player as... Look, if anyone writes a retelling of a Greek myth and doesn't make Zeus, like, a giant raging asshole...
You're doing something wrong.
Yeah, you're doing something wrong. Because because that just doesn't happen. I really like the art in this one. I'm not gonna lie. I like this art better than Lore Olympus, but only because the colors in Lore Olympus sometimes get me like confused, and
Lore Olympus is stylized. And
it's very stylized. It's not a bad thing, but it's why I stopped reading it for a while, because I was just like struggling with it in comparison to some of the other stuff I'm reading. But I mean, this also has its fair share of stylization at times.
Yeah, not to that extent.
Yeah, some pretty epic kind of like spreads. Really beautiful art. So I don't have any news on when a volume 2 of this is coming out. Obviously, so with Lore Olympus, I think the first 2 volumes are out, maybe the first 3 in paper, and obviously it's much further online. And I'm now keeping up with it. But with Punderworld, I kept up with it till she went on the author went on a season break. And I haven't gotten a notification that she came back yet. It was a while ago.
You know, these both got popular at around the same time, right?
No, I think Lore Olympus is older.
But did they... So... Are they...
In fact, Punderworld isn't actually that well known.
Oh.
I mean, like, you know it if you're in the realm of, like, Greek webcomics, but it's not one of the ones that necessarily gets recommended to you on Webtoon, even though it's also on Webtoon.
Here I was going to blame the collective consciousness for fixating too much on the same subject matter, but then, no. It's you fixating too much on the same subject matter.
Fun fact, I've actually read a third webcomic retelling this exact same story by a different author. Knick-knack! Come back! There's also a novelization in YA format a couple shelves up of a Hades and Persephone myth retelling. Yeah, I've got at least 2 YA novels on that exact same story as well. Look, I like what I like. What can I say?
Put some diversity in our off the shelf, please.
I will. There's some stuff coming up that's new and different.
Some stuff. So that means the next 3 are Hades and Persephone retellings.
I know I've read a third. I have not been able to find that third anywhere online. It's a fever dream. I know I read a third webtoon of this exact story. Ow, I just hit myself in the eye. I know I've read one, and I don't remember what website I read it on, and I can't find it anywhere now. And it's... You know what? I bet you it's written on... I bet you it's in my webtoon video, because I think I found it for my webtoon video. Like I went and actually found the because when I was talking about my webtoon video, I mean, this is, despite Punderworld not being as famous as Lore Olympus, right? The fact that there have been at minimum 3 stories written retelling the same myth shows like a certain trend, right, towards it, especially because there is a fairly large community of like webtoons, like for a given value of how many webtoons there are on like Webtoon, right? There's, I think, 9 or 10, maybe even like up to 12 different webtoons that are all based in Greek mythology. And they don't all retell Hades and Persephone, but there's a lot in that like very specific subgenre that I covered it in my webtoon video for the channel a while back. I also covered power leveling, like solo leveling, wish fulfillment power leveling, which is another big one.
Do you have any variation in your palette whatsoever beyond the same 3 modes?
There's also the Empress stuff.
4.
And the
4
gay stuff.
modes.
And the gay stuff.
Fair enough. That's a very broad category. I'll take that.
That's true. That's true. You can't be so picky with the gay stuff. It's delicious. So yeah.
I hope you know, like, I think the book was very good, but I'm judging you high key here.
For what? For what? You know what the funny thing is? I got into like the Greek mythology themed webtoons because of this webtoon called Athena Complex, which was a story about the goddess Athena. And I distinctly remember that back when I was reading it, it was left like on hiatus, permanently unfinished, and I don't know if the author ever came back to finish it. So I'm gonna have to go look that up now.
So guys, I'm gonna go ahead and give you some advice here to save your kids a cultural palette in the long run. Keep an eye on their access to the internet. You never know if they'll access fanfiction.net and peruse the same archive for hours and upon months upon years on end, following the same exact story instead of reading a new book.
I read new books, bitch. I read new stuff. I read everything. I mean, I'm a little picky about length and completion, but I read everything.
And the entire Harry Potter archive.
Look. Don't slam me for not wanting to give my money to J.K. Rowling. I would much rather read a fan version.
You were perusing the Harry Potter archive in its
long
entirety before J.K. Rowling came out as a horrible person.
True, but I've become much more invested in it since. Alright, well, I guess we'll be back with the next book. So I'll see you in a few weeks. You know, maybe this won't be a Hades and Persephone retelling. Maybe it will.
One can only hope.
Like, comment, subscribe.